Nice to have you back, my esteemed followers, to our ongoing series, Web API Development Using Clean Architecture. Today, we shall be discussing protecting Web API using ASP.NET Core Identity Management and JWT token. So, let's start by reviewing where we stopped the last time when we created a simple CRUD. As you can see from this Swagger page, you were able to create employee, get the list of employee, get a list of employee by ID, update, and delete. So you discover that in this page, there is nothing that is showing that it is protected. Anyone that has access to this URL will be able to get every of the data required. And in production environment, it is not a good one. That is why we are calling for this case study today. As you can see on the screen, a web API plays the role of access point to data and software functionality. Without API authentication, unknown and untrusted users can have access to your data and functionality. That can easily lead to hacking. When your protected data is now in the hands of the unwanted guest, you know what it means. So that is why it's very, very important we protect our web API. As, as displayed by this small diagram on the screen, you can see a user supply username and password to a web client, a client that in turn push those credentials to authentication slash authorization server. That server checks if the credentials are correct. And if it is correct, it returns a token back. This token is what the client will hold on to access any resource based on his or her privileges and roles. So till that token expires, that person will be able to access the resources that is entitled to go through to receive. So when it expires, it calls for a refresh. That is how we go about protecting or using a JWT token. Now, today, there are activities that must be carried out before we can start using the ASP.NET Identity Core functionalities. We have to add some nuggets to the projects based on our structure. We have infrastructure project that accesses database and the rest. We have the application core that does the pure logic of the solution. We have the web API that interface with the endpoints, with the outsiders and the solution itself. So by the time we bring in all these expected nuggets and extend some of the functionality of identity core classes, then update the DB context, the program, and the program files, the program.cs file, then the Swagger itself. We run migration, we discover that we are now set to consume the identity management and the JWT. So if we look at the database that was created, as at the last time, we had only department and employee basic info, as you can see on the screen. It is still remaining the same. We have not done any update to it. So if you look at the application itself too, it is running. Let me stop it. If you look at the application, you discover that the structure still remains. It remains. We have the data, the DB context. We have the entity, which is where you saw the department and the basic info just now. So we shall now be moving on to say, okay, let's add those references and at the same time do some configurations that will take us to exactly where we want to be. So stay tuned as I try to open the expected there. Okay, let's quickly start by going to the infrastructure to add the expected NuGet package. Let's go to add NuGet package. We are adding identity entity framework core, Microsoft. So let's use the version. Okay, I think this does not have a lower version. This will not work. I need a lower version for this to work. Let me try. It should work with .6, with .6.0, ASP.NET. to call a different work call. Let's see if it will work. This is taking time. Provide. Let's wait for it to come up. Okay, let's install the 6.0. That's the version of our solution. So, okay, this will definitely go through. So it has been installed, as you can see on the screen. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the web API to equally add a NuGet package, authentication bearer. Can I have authentication, authentication bearer? Okay, Microsoft ASP.NET authentication bearer. Let's equally go for 6.0 to be compatible with our solution. Okay, let's install and see how this goes. So as you can see too, this Dejavity bearer has been installed. The web API, which is the web front of it. So let's see for the call, what we need to add to the call as well. I want to add a NuGet package. Let's add a .NET Core entity. Let's identity ASP .NET Core dot identity. Look for this. ASP .NET Core identity. This is what we need for the logic area. I guess this is the version that's still latest. So let's try to install it and move on from here. Okay, so we expose some classes. So as seen on the screen as well, this has been ASP.NET Core Identity 2.0 has been installed, which means across the projects we have installed the nuggets that are expected for us to get used to token bearer and ASP.NET Identity. So let's quickly move ahead. This is the aspect, this infrastructure that communicates with the external environment. Let's create a folder. Let's create a folder account. Create folder account. Let's quickly have a classes there that we inherit from the identity user and the role. So we can call this, let's call this user reg. What we intend to do with this, we want to register the users that we have access to the solution. Don't forget what we did before was to register employees. Employees are different from users. Employee if it's not created as a user, they will not have access to the application. So they must be created as a user before they can access the application. So this is what we are trying to do. Let's look at this one, turn into public. We want this user reg to extend to inherit from the identity user class, TT, identity user. This identity user has some feeds that are already in it, like the phone number, the email, they're already in it. So we are saying if we want to extend this, we want to add some other feeds to it, not just the default one that comes. That is the essence of this. This one, the role, we inherit from the role, the identity itself, the role that is already existing in it. We can use this as to inherit from entity role. I'll take from identity role. Okay, let's make it public so that it can be accessible outside this class. Okay, we have done this. Let's quickly populate this without wasting time. So these are the feeds I've created here. Create first name, last name, the user role. This not mapped is a data annotation. I don't want it to be created in the database. That is why I tag this feed not mapped. Full name will not be created. So we have done this. This is an extension of what we want to use as the user want to register. Then for the user role, we have inherited from this. Okay. The next thing is let's try to update the app DB context. As you can see, this is using the DB context directly. And that is why we did not have anything that has to do with identity items or entities in that table. So we shall be changing this to identity DB context. Let's turn this one to identity to inherit from identity DB context. And we now come with some parameters, which based on what we have just defined. Let's first of all resolve this. Okay, and see where this is coming from. Then we have the user reg. Let's enter the user reg, which is the this very class we created just now. User reg, then a user row, user rows, then a string. This is how we'll be passing, we'll be obtaining these parameters from this DB context. So every other thing remains the same. Let's save. Okay, I haven't done this. Let's move to where we can equally look at updating. All right, so we have seen the DB context, how we have updated it. Let's quickly move to the API. I move to the program file to do some adjustment here. The DB database settings in the app settings remain the same. So here you can see what we are having here. The initial thing still stand like I said. So but we have to add identity manager to refresh it. Have a builder dot services dot add identity. Okay, you can see add identity based on what we have done just now. Again, we have a user. Let's bring this class here. We have a reg, okay, user reg, comma user roles, okay. We have options. We have let's use lambda here. We can do this. So do this. Okay. And we can define the way we want. Let me say yes. Can define how we want OTP options. How we want the credentials to be. Sign in. Okay. Sign in require all the things you need here. Required email confirmation. If we want it to be true, I don't want a user that when you create a user, a mail notification will be sent for them to validate. We'll make it true. Otherwise, we can make it false. Yeah. See here. Yeah. We'll equally make this session quicker. So we have added a signing required email. I said it's false. Password require alphanumeric first. I'm just saying the password length, let it be 6. Then for the add row, we have to extend it to have a role manager for us to be able to manage the role of the user. Then this user manager is the one that creates the user when we get to that method of creating it. The assign manager, this enable it to a user to be able to sign in, to confirm, compare emails, password and the rest. So this token provider, ability to equally return that token, like we said. The framework store is the AppDB context, which we have here. So this will make it to be able to use the same database for identity management entities that will be expected. So having done this, we we added the auto mapper before. We added Swagger. If you can see, we added a Swagger. I don't want this class to be jam packed. So what I will now do, I will not need to use this Swagger gen, which is the default that comes with it. Let's equally update it so that we can use a Swagger document. So let's say builder dot service dot add, not adding controller, to add, need to add doc swagger, doc swagger, add the service builder dot service dot add doc swagger. Okay. This we shall be using an extension. Let's create an extension class to be able to use so that we can configure and see and ensure that the Swagger we are bringing on board, the Swagger page will now be able to show authentication. So we can do that. Let's add the middleware. Let's add the middleware here. Let's add the middleware here. Let's create a folder. You can call it an extension. You can leave it under API. Let's leave it under API. Sorry. Let's leave it under API. Let's create an extension class here. Let's create a folder. Call it let's call it middleware extension. Middleware extension. Let's have a class here. This class we intended to make the code cleaner. Okay. Let's call it dependency injection extension extension. Quickly create it. We are going to make it a static class, public static class injection. So we have bring the name here. Let's create a void method for it here. Void method of a public static void swagger. We take some value from sorry, this service collection. Service collection. Service collection. Service. So we'll try to populate, see how this goes. So as you can see on the screen, I've added this Swagger gen, which was the former one we're using the default without any addition. This is what we're using here. So let's resolve this for it to use that extension class. Okay, go back to the extension again. So you can see swagger.add security definition. So the token we shall be passing through this page will come with bearer. When you have bearer, it has space. So this is how the name, the authorization, the security type, API key, all of them. This is how we carefully configure the Swagger security requirement, open security requirement. You can see how we put all these things together to ensure that when we now run the Swagger, we'll see where we'll be able to enter the token as expected. So this is just a decoration of how we want the Swagger page to be. So having said that, let's quickly think today we will not have to create the interface and the classes. That is what we'll do next time. This is just to set up the environment so that when we come next time, we'll be able to have a smooth landing. We'll just start by coding decoding the implementation directly, where we'll create the interface, the class that consumes it, the controller. So having done this, I think we are good with the setup. Let's quickly see if we can run the migration to see where it will take us to. So let's try to run migration to see if all we have done we reflect as expected. Let's say add dash migration. There's the command, say entity, identity, add. So we added identity. Let's try to run. Okay, it's going. Right, luckily it has come out. As you can see, this table, ASP.NET rows, ASP.NET user, this is where the user will be. As you can see, these are the fields we see on the table. You can see the first name, the last name, the row, just as we defined in these entities. Where's my, okay, this entity, you can see the first name, the last name. Because he inherited from this identity, that is why you are seeing the email. I didn't put email there, but you are seeing email. You can see phone number. Every other thing is inheriting from that class. So the same way we have a claim, row claim, the claims that will be used as a policy later. The user claims, what claim does this user have in the application? So you can see the user login, every other things they came out. So when these are ready in the database, you will now know that we are set. So if I refresh the database at this point, we discover that there is nothing there because we have not updated the database. So let's update the database. Update dash database. If we update this database, sure the tables would have been created. Oh, so there's error. There is already an object named department. Department. Okay, let me try to constraint department. So let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, I think what it's trying to do here is trying to run the migration that was used initially. That's not reflected in the database. Let me try to exclude this and see. Exclude from project. Let me try to run this, update the database again. See what happens. Because it's not part of this migration. I do not expect it to come up. Okay, it is done, which is we are right. The reason that database issue came up because I didn't. I only lay emphasis on this employee database table. I mean, I didn't use. I didn't make reference to that department again because there was no need. I needed to just create a very small CRUD. So as you can see on the screen, you can see the table, the ASP.NET user. This is where the created users that will have access to the resources we are talking of will be stored. You can see the roles, you can see the claim that they belong, the roles, the role name. If you say admin, for instance, they will come here. If it's a user, the role type will come here. The role that the user is having itself will come here. So this is where we are going to map them. So with what we have seen now, I can tell you we are ready to consume ASP.NET identity classes and the JWT. So let's try to run this application to see if the Swagger will give us something different from what we had before. So let's quickly, I don't think this will take time. Let's quickly let it come up. Okay. All right. You will agree with me, before there was nothing like this authorized. With this authorized key that you are seeing here, it shows that this page is ready for protection. So what we now need to do next in our next section is to protect these resources. Create user is an endpoint. We need to say, okay, if you are not authorized, you will not be able to access it. The same thing if you want to get employees, all these things we will authorize all these endpoints. We will protect them from unauthorized user not able to access them. So if we have a token now, what would have done based on, you can see exactly what we put in the extension class just now. These are the decoration, just the information that we put there. You're going to use API key, the bearer. So what we need to do is to type bearer here, space, the token that will be returned when a user supply username and the password. So which means one of the methods we will be exposing or endpoints next week or next time when I'm making this video is the ability for a user to log on. We will have ability for a user to be set up, ability for a user to be logged on. When a user logs on, a token is returned. That token will store it here, and you discover that that user will be able to navigate all the endpoints. Without that, an error or unauthorized error will be returned. So this is where we'll be drawing the curtain today, and I will appreciate you to give me an encouragement by subscribing to my YouTube channel, subscribing, like the post that you are seeing. I can tell you, it can only get better. I take my time to digest this thing to make it simple for even first timer into .NET. We know exactly what is expected. So I hope to see you. Thank you very much, and God bless.